Maximilian Blackwood's life was like a luxury Swiss watch, precise, predictable, and terribly expensive. By 7:45 in the morning, he had already reviewed 3 acquisition proposals, fired an incompetent vice president, and approved the purchase of a winery in Tuscany, all between his first cup of Colombian coffee and the second. Mr. Blackwood, his personal assistant Miranda, appeared at his office door on the 47th floor, tablet in hand and worried expression on her face. "We have a problem with tonight's event." Max didn't even look up from the documents. At 32 years old, he had built a real estate empire valued at $2 billion, and problems were just minor obstacles on his perfectly paved path. Define problem, Miranda. Did the Dom Perignon 1996 champagne not arrive? Did the string quartet cancel? Or is it something more dramatic, like the absence of enough white flowers to impress high society? Actually, Miranda hesitated, something rare for someone who had survived 3 years working for Manhattan's most demanding man. It's about the guest list. There was a confusion in the system. Now Max did look up, his steel blue irises fixing on his assistant with laser-like intensity. What kind of confusion? The system duplicated some records and, well, it seems we sent invitations to people who shouldn't have been on the main list, including. She consulted her tablet. Suppliers, cleaning staff, and waiters. The silence that followed was deafening. Max leaned back in his Italian leather chair, a dangerous smile playing on his lips. "Miranda, are you telling me that my $500,000 charity event, where governors, senators, and CEOs of the country's largest corporations will be present, will also have the attendance of cleaning staff? Sir, I can contact everyone and no." Max stood up, walking to the panoramic window that offered a spectacular view of Central Park. "Leave it as it is. It will be interesting." On the other side of town, in a small Brooklyn apartment she shared with 2 college roommates, Celeste Romano held a golden envelope as if it were a bomb about to explode. "This has to be a mistake," she murmured, rereading the invitation for the 5th time. Her name was there, engraved in elegant letters, Ms. Celeste Romano, followed by an address she recognized as one of Manhattan's most expensive hotels. "Celly, you look pale," said Jade, her roommate, appearing in the kitchen wearing unicorn slippers. "What's that? Remember I signed up with that events agency to work as a waitress on weekends? The one that pays peanuts, but at least it's in fancy places?" "That's the one." Celeste waved the invitation. "They sent me this, but it's not for work. It's an invitation, as a guest." Jade snatched the paper from her hands, her eyes widening. "Celeste, this is Maximilian Blackwood's charity event, that gorgeous, arrogant billionaire who appears on Forbes covers. Exactly why it has to be a mistake. People like me don't receive invitations to events by people like him. Or," Jade smiled mischievously, "the universe finally decided to give you a chance. When was the last time you did something just for yourself? When was the last time you had real fun?" Celeste sighed, looking at her cafe uniform hanging on the chair. 3 different jobs to pay for nursing school, an apartment shared with 2 people, and a wardrobe that basically consisted of worn jeans and basic t-shirts. "Jade, I don't have clothes for an event like this, or money to buy any." "Leave that to me," Jade winked. "Remember my cousin who works at a boutique? She owes me a few favors." 6 hours later, Celeste found herself in front of the mirror, barely recognizing her own image. The borrowed navy blue dress hugged her curves elegantly, and Jade had worked miracles with her makeup. "You look stunning," Jade murmured, adjusting Celeste's chestnut curls. "Promise you'll enjoy yourself? Promise you'll forget your worries for one night?" "I promise I'll try." The Meridian Hotel was even more imposing than in the photos. Celeste handed the invitation to the doorman, her heart racing as he checked her name on the list. "Ms. Romano, welcome. The elevator to your right will take you directly to the main ballroom." They really were expecting me, she thought, incredulous. The ballroom was filled with people who looked like they'd stepped out of Vogue pages. Men in impeccable tuxedos and women in dresses that cost more than Celeste's annual rent, circulated with champagne flutes, discussing corporate mergers and trips to private islands. Celeste took a champagne flute from a passing waiter. Ironically, she recognized the uniform from the same agency she worked for, and tried to blend into the crowd. "You don't look familiar," said a masculine voice behind her. Celeste turned and almost dropped her drink. Maximilian Blackwood was just inches away, even more impressive in person than in magazine photos. Tall, broad shoulders, perfectly styled black hair, and those blue eyes that seemed to see through people's souls. She stammered, feeling her face heat up. "Is this your first time at one of my events?" He tilted his head, studying her with curiosity. "I usually remember all my guests, especially beautiful women." The compliment, delivered with casual arrogance that only confirmed his reputation, made Celeste straighten up. "Maybe you're not as observant as you think." Max blinked, surprised. No one had ever spoken to him like that. "Interesting," he murmured, a genuine smile replacing his calculated expression. "And what's your name, mysterious woman who dares challenge my observational skills?" "Celeste." "Celeste," he repeated, as if tasting the name. "Like the stars." "Fitting, considering you're certainly the brightest in this ballroom." Before Celeste could respond, a tall, slender blonde approached, possessively sliding her arm through Max's. "Maximilian, darling, you disappeared," she said with a fake smile. "The Pembertons are asking for you." "Ah, yes." Max seemed reluctant. "Celeste, this is Vivian Ashford, from the Ashford Industries family." "Vivian, Celeste." Vivian examined Celeste from head to toe with a calculating look, clearly assessing the competition. "Pleasure," she said, with no pleasure in her voice. "What an interesting dress. Is it vintage?" The question sounded like a disguised insult, and Celeste felt the familiar burn of humiliation rising in her chest. "Actually, it's stunning," Max interrupted, his eyes meeting Celeste's. "Vintage or not, it's perfect." Vivian pursed her lips but was interrupted by the arrival of an older man in a tuxedo. "Max, I need to talk to you about the Henderson Corp proposal. It's urgent." "Of course, Theodore. Celeste, it was a pleasure. I hope we meet again before the night ends." And with that, he was gone, leaving Celeste alone with her heart racing and 1,000 questions in her head. She spent the next hour trying to blend in, talking to people who clearly wondered who she was. She was considering leaving when she heard her name being called over the sound system. "Ms. Celeste Romano, please report to reception." Confused and with her stomach knotting with nervousness, Celeste made her way to the desk where a man in a suit awaited her with a stern expression. "Ms. Romano, I'm Robert Chen, Event Security Manager. I need to speak with you." "Is there a problem?" "Actually, there is. It seems there's been a misunderstanding. According to our records, you should be working tonight, not as a guest. There's a discrepancy in our system." Celeste's world stopped. Around her, some people began to gather, whispering among themselves. She could feel the stares, the speculation. I received the invitation," she said with a trembling voice, pulling the golden envelope from her small purse. Robert examined the invitation, confirming with a tablet. "Yes, there's an error in our system. You should be on the staff list, not the guest list. I'm going to have to ask you to leave." Celeste's cheeks burned with shame. Across the ballroom, she saw Vivian whispering something in a group of women's ears, all looking in her direction with malicious smiles. "I understand," she murmured, dignity being the only thing preventing her from crying right there. "I'll get my things." "What's the problem here?" Max's voice cut through the murmur and Celeste closed her eyes, wishing the earth would swallow her whole. "Mr. Blackwood," Robert straightened up. "There was an error in the system. This young lady received an invitation by mistake. She should be on the staff team, not as a guest." Max looked from Robert to Celeste, seeing the humiliation stamped on her face. Something inside him contracted, a strange sensation he couldn't identify. "I see," he said, his voice cold as ice. And you decided to resolve this publicly instead of discreetly. Sir, we followed protocol. Robert, you're fired. Hand over your badge to security and leave. A shocked silence took over the group that had gathered. Celeste looked at Max, completely stunned. As for you, Max turned to her, and for a moment Celeste thought he was going to make the situation worse. The invitation reached your hands, so you're my guest. Simple as that. Before anyone could react, Max offered his arm to Celeste. Shall we? I believe dinner is about to be served, and I'd very much like to get to know you better, Celeste Romano. As they walked together toward the dining room, Celeste couldn't help but wonder if this was a dream, or the beginning of something that would change her life forever. Behind them, Vivian watched with narrowed eyes, already planning her next move. What neither of them knew was that the error in the system hadn't been accidental, and that someone in that room had a great interest in seeing Celeste Romano destroyed. But they would only discover this when it was too late. The dining room sparkled under crystal chandeliers as Max guided Celeste to the head table. She could feel hundreds of eyes following their every step, whispers rippling through the crowd like waves. You didn't have to do that, Celeste said quietly as Max pulled out her chair. I could have just left. And let them humiliate you. Max's jaw tightened. I don't think so. As he settled beside her, Celeste caught a whiff of his cologne, something expensive and masculine that made her pulse quicken. She tried to focus on the elaborate place setting, counting the forks to calm her nerves. Nervous? Max asked, noticing her fidgeting. Terrified, she admitted. I don't belong here. Says who? His blue eyes fixed on hers. You're more genuine than half these people. Before she could respond, Vivian appeared at Max's other side, her smile sharp as a blade. Maximilian, you're causing quite the stir, she purred, settling into the chair that clearly wasn't meant for her. Everyone's wondering about your mysterious companion. Let them wonder, Max replied coolly. Vivian's eyes narrowed as she studied Celeste. So tell me, dear, what do you do? Besides crashing exclusive events, of course. Celeste's cheeks burned. I'm a nursing student. How noble, Vivian's tone dripped condescension. And where do you work while studying? Let me guess, some diner in Queens? Actually, she works multiple jobs to pay for school, Max interrupted, his voice carrying a warning edge. Something I find incredibly admirable. The conversation was mercifully interrupted by the arrival of the first course. As waiters in crisp uniforms served truffle soup, Celeste recognized one of them, Marco from the catering agency. Their eyes met briefly, and she saw confusion in his gaze. He knew she should be wearing his uniform, not sitting at the head table. The soup is exquisite, commented Senator Williams from across the table. You always have impeccable taste, Max. Thank you, Senator. Though I must say, the company makes all the difference. Max glanced meaningfully at Celeste, who nearly choked on her soup. Throughout dinner, Max found himself genuinely engaged in conversation for the first time in months. Celeste spoke passionately about her studies, her dreams of working in pediatric nursing, her volunteer work at free clinics. You volunteer too? He asked, surprised. Every Saturday morning at the community center in my neighborhood. It's not much, but it's everything, he said softly, and something in his tone made her look at him differently. As dessert was served, individual chocolate soufflés that probably cost more than Celeste's monthly grocery budget, Vivian excused herself, claiming she needed to powder her nose. But instead of heading to the ladies' room, she pulled out her phone. Marcus, it's Vivian. I need you to dig up everything you can on a girl named Celeste Romano. Yes, tonight. I don't care what it costs. Back at the table, Max was asking Celeste about her family. It's just me and my mom, Celeste said, twirling her spoon nervously. My dad left when I was 12. Mom works 2 jobs, cleaning offices at night and watching kids during the day. She's the strongest person I know. That must have been difficult, Max said, his usual arrogance replaced by genuine concern. It was, but it taught me what really matters. She met his eyes. Money can't buy everything, Mr. Blackwood. Max, he corrected. And you're right. Though it can certainly make life easier. Maybe. But it can also make people forget who they really are. The comment hit closer to home than Max cared to admit. When was the last time he'd done something just because it was right, not because it benefited him? As the evening wound down, couples began moving to the adjoining ballroom where a jazz band played. Max stood and offered his hand. Dance with me? Celeste hesitated. I should probably go. This has been more than enough. One dance, Max insisted. Please. Against her better judgment, she took his hand. The moment they stepped onto the dance floor, everything else faded away. Max's arms encircled her waist, drawing her closer than propriety dictated. You're full of surprises, Celeste Romano, he murmured against her ear. Good surprises or bad ones? The best kind. The kind that make a man question everything he thought he knew about himself. They swayed to the music, and for a moment, Celeste forgot about their different worlds. She let herself imagine what it would be like if this were real, if she truly belonged in his arms. But reality crashed back when she spotted Vivian watching them with cold calculation, phone pressed to her ear. I should really go, Celeste whispered, pulling back. Max's grip tightened slightly. Stay. The night is young and I... Max. Theodore appeared at his elbow, looking urgent. Sorry to interrupt, but we have a situation. The Japanese investors are threatening to pull out. They need to speak with you immediately. Max's expression darkened. Can't it wait until morning? I'm afraid not. They're flying back to Tokyo in 2 hours. Celeste saw the internal struggle in Max's eyes, duty versus desire. Go, she said softly. This is your world. These are your responsibilities. I'll be back, he promised. Don't leave. But as Max disappeared into the crowd with Theodore, Celeste felt the magic of the evening slipping away. She was Cinderella, and midnight was approaching fast. Enjoying yourself? Vivian materialized beside her like a beautiful snake. It's been enlightening. Oh, I'm sure it has. Tell me, do you really think someone like Max could be interested in someone like you? Vivian's smile was poison sweet. He collects broken things, you know. Fixes them up, then discards them when he gets bored. I don't know what you're talking about. Don't you? You're his charity case of the evening. His good deed. By tomorrow, he won't even remember your name. Each word was a carefully aimed arrow, designed to find its mark in Celeste's deepest insecurities. Excuse me, Celeste managed, pushing past Vivian toward the exit. She retrieved her coat from the check, her hands shaking as she handed over the ticket. The attendant, a girl about her own age, looked at her with pity. Rough night? The girl asked kindly. Something like that. Outside, the cool night air hit her like a slap. Celeste stood on the hotel steps, trying to process everything that had happened. Part of her wanted to wait for Max, to see if Vivian was wrong. But the rational part, the part that had learned hard lessons about hoping for things beyond her reach, knew better. She was about to hail a cab when her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Ask your Prince Charming about the Henderson acquisition. Ask him what he's willing to sacrifice for money. Then ask yourself if you're just another acquisition. A friend. Celeste stared at the message, her heart sinking. Henderson Corp. She'd heard that name during dinner conversation. Wasn't that the company Max was trying to buy? Inside the hotel, Max finished his call with the Japanese investors, having successfully saved a deal worth $50 million. All he wanted now was to find Celeste, to continue their conversation, to explore whatever was happening between them. But when he returned to the ballroom, she was gone. Looking for someone? Vivian appeared with champagne and a satisfied smirk. Where is she? Gone, I'm afraid. She said to tell you thank you for the charity, but she remembered her place. Vivian's eyes glittered with malice. Really, Max? What did you expect? She's not one of us. Max felt something cold settle in his chest. Had he misread everything? Had the connection he'd felt been one-sided? But as he stood there in his perfectly orchestrated world, surrounded by people who only wanted something from him, Max realized he'd never felt more alone. What he didn't know was that across town, Celeste was crying in a Brooklyn apartment, clutching a mysterious text that would change everything. 3 days had passed since the gala, and Max couldn't concentrate on anything. He'd snapped at Miranda twice, abandoned 2 board meetings, and was currently staring out his office window instead of reviewing quarterly reports. "Sir?" Miranda's voice was cautious. "Your mother is on line 1. Max grimaced. Eleanor Blackwood only called when she sensed weakness, like a shark detecting blood in the water. "Maximilian, darling." His mother's cultured voice filled the office. "I heard about your little scene at the charity gala." "Really? Defending some waitress in public? What will people think?" "How did you—" "Never mind." Max rubbed his temples. "It doesn't matter what people think." "Of course it does. You're a Blackwood. We have a reputation to maintain." Eleanor's tone sharpened. "Vivian told me everything. This girl is clearly after your money. Vivian doesn't know what she's talking about. Doesn't she? Darling, you're brilliant in business but naive about women. This Romano girl orchestrated the entire evening. The mistake with the invitations. Please." The seed of doubt that had been growing since Celeste's disappearance took root. Had he been played? "I have to go, Mother." "Maximilian, listen to me. The Henderson deal is crucial. Don't let some opportunistic girl ruin everything." The line went dead, leaving Max with more questions than answers. Meanwhile, across town, Celeste was having her own crisis. She'd barely slept, the mysterious text haunting her thoughts. During her shift at the community center, she'd been distracted, mixing up medications, and nearly giving a diabetic patient the wrong insulin dose. "Celeste, honey, you need to go home," said Dr. Martinez, the volunteer physician. "You're exhausted." "I'm fine, really. You almost killed Mrs. Peterson. Go home. Rest. Come back when your head is clear." Celeste nodded miserably, gathering her things. As she walked through the waiting room filled with people who couldn't afford proper health care, she thought about Max's world of champagne and excess. The contrast made her stomach churn. Outside, she was surprised to find a sleek black car waiting. "Ms. Romano?" The driver stepped out. "Mr. Blackwood would like to speak with you." Her heart hammered. "I don't think that's a good idea. Please. He's been looking for you." Against her better judgment, she got in. The car was pure luxury. Leather seats, crystal glasses, temperature controlled to perfection. It reminded her of everything she couldn't have. They drove to Central Park, stopping at a secluded area near the reservoir. Max was waiting on a bench, looking more human than she'd ever seen him. His hair was slightly messed, his tie loosened, and there were dark circles under his eyes. "You left," he said simply as she approached. "I had to." "Why?" He stood studying her face. I felt something between us. Was I wrong?" Celeste's resolve wavered. He looked genuinely hurt, vulnerable in a way that didn't fit his billionaire persona. "Tell me about Henderson Corp," she said instead. Max froze. "What about it? Are you buying them?" "It's complicated. Why do you ask?" "Someone sent me a text. They said I should ask you what you're willing to sacrifice for money." She pulled out her phone, showing him the message. Max's expression darkened as he read. "Who sent this?" "I don't know, but they seem to know a lot about you, about us. Celeste, I need you to listen to me. Henderson Corp is a family business that's been struggling. The owners want to sell, and I'm offering them far more than their company is worth. It's not a hostile takeover, it's a rescue." "And what happens to the employees?" Max hesitated just long enough for her to notice. "Some positions will be restructured." "You mean people will lose their jobs?" "Some. But the alternative is the entire company going under. At least this way, most jobs are saved." Celeste shook her head. "Do you hear yourself? You're talking about people's lives like they're numbers on a spreadsheet. That's not fair. I'm trying to save what I can." "Are you? Or are you just telling yourself that to sleep better at night?" Her words hit their mark. Max had been struggling with the same question for weeks. "You don't understand the pressure I'm under," he said. "The expectations, the responsibility for thousands of employees, shareholders." "I understand pressure," Celeste interrupted. "I work 3 jobs to put myself through school while taking care of my mother. I know what it's like to make impossible choices. The difference is your choices affect hundreds of families you'll never meet." They stared at each other across an emotional chasm that seemed impossible to bridge. "This is why you left," Max realized. "You think I'm some heartless corporate raider, aren't you?" The question hung between them like a challenge. Max wanted to deny it, to defend himself, but doubt crept in. When had he stopped seeing people as individuals and started seeing them as resources? "I used to be different," he said quietly. "When I first took over the company after my father died, I had ideals. I wanted to build something meaningful, not just profitable. What changed? The world, the market. Every kind decision was seen as weakness, every mercy as a liability." He sat back down heavily. Maybe I did lose myself somewhere along the way. For the first time since they'd met, Celeste saw the man behind the money. Someone who had been shaped by circumstance and expectation, who carried the weight of impossible decisions. "It's not too late," she said softly, sitting beside him. "You could find another way with Henderson. You could choose to be different." "Even if it costs me everything? Would that be so terrible? Losing everything to do what's right?" Max looked at her, this woman who had 3 jobs and gave her Saturdays to help people who couldn't pay, who wore borrowed dresses but had more integrity in her little finger than most people had in their entire bodies. "You make it sound simple. Maybe it is. Maybe we just convince ourselves it's complicated to justify our compromises." They sat in silence watching joggers pass by, normal people living normal lives. Max envied them their simplicity. "Have dinner with me," he said suddenly. "Not at some fancy restaurant. Somewhere you choose. Show me your world." Celeste hesitated. Every rational part of her brain screamed warnings, but her heart was already saying yes. "There's a little Italian place in my neighborhood. Nothing fancy." "Perfect." As they stood to leave, Max's phone buzzed with an urgent message from Theodore. "Henderson board meeting moved to tomorrow. They're getting cold feet. Need decision tonight." Max stared at the screen, feeling the weight of 2 worlds pulling him in opposite directions. "What is it?" Celeste asked, seeing his expression. "Nothing that can't wait," he lied, turning off his phone. But as they walked back to the car, both of them knew that some decisions couldn't be postponed forever. And somewhere in the city, Vivian was putting the final pieces of her plan into place, a plan that would force Max to choose between his heart and his empire. The mysterious texter watched from a distance, satisfied that the seeds of doubt were taking root. Soon everything Max had built would come crashing down, and Celeste would see him for what he really was. Or so they thought. Mama Rosa's Italian restaurant was nothing like the places Max usually frequented. Red checkered tablecloths, mismatched chairs, and the warm aroma of garlic and tomatoes filled the air. When he walked in wearing his $1,000 suit, conversations momentarily stopped. "Max!" Celeste waved from a corner booth, looking radiant in a simple sundress. "Over here." As he approached, she stood to greet him, and without thinking, he leaned down to kiss her cheek. The gesture felt natural, intimate, and sent warmth spreading through both of them. "This place is..." He looked around, searching for words. "Humble?" Celeste suggested with a smile. "Perfect," he finished, meaning it. "Celeste, Bambina." A robust woman with flour-dusted hands appeared, embracing Celeste warmly. "And who is this handsome man?" "Mama Rosa, meet Max. Max, this is Rosa. She's been feeding me since I moved to the neighborhood." "Any friend of Celeste's is family," Rosa declared, immediately adopting Max. "You sit, you eat. I bring you the good stuff." Before Max could protest, Rosa disappeared into the kitchen, leaving them alone. "She doesn't take no for an answer," Celeste laughed. "I like her already." Max loosened his tie, looking more relaxed than she'd ever seen him. "Do you come here often?" Every Sunday after my shift at the clinic, Rosa always saves me leftovers. Celeste's cheeks reddened. I probably shouldn't have mentioned that. Why not? Because it makes me sound pathetic. The poor girl who needs charity food. Max reached across the table, covering her hand with his. It makes you sound grateful and humble. Two things my world could use more of. The touch sent electricity through both of them. Celeste looked down at their joined hands, his manicured and soft, hers bearing small cuts from her various jobs. The contrast was stark, yet somehow they fit perfectly together. "Tell me about your mother," Max said, not wanting to break the connection. Celeste's face lit up. "Maria Romano is the strongest woman alive. When my father left, she could have fallen apart. Instead, she worked harder, sacrificed everything for me. She cleans offices all night, then watches kids during the day, never complains. She sounds incredible." "She is. She taught me that dignity doesn't come from what you have, but from how you treat others." Celeste met his eyes. "What about your parents?" Max's expression darkened slightly. "My father built Blackwood Industries from nothing. Brilliant, ruthless, completely dedicated to success. He died when I was 25 and I inherited everything, including his enemies and expectations." "And your mother?" "Eleanor Blackwood believes in three things: money, status, and the Blackwood name. She sees people as either useful or obstacles." Max's jaw tightened. "She called today to warn me about you." "What did she say?" "That you were after my money. That the gala mix-up was orchestrated by you." Celeste pulled her hand back, stung. "And what did you tell her?" "Nothing, because part of me wondered if she was right." The honesty hung between them like a blade. Celeste stood abruptly. "I should go." "Celeste, wait." "No." Her voice was steady but hurt. "If you think I'm some gold digger, then we have nothing to talk about." Before she could leave, Rosa appeared with steaming plates of pasta, blocking her exit. "Nobody leaves without eating," Rosa announced. "You sit, you eat, you talk. This is how we solve problems, with full stomachs and open hearts." Reluctantly, Celeste sat back down. The food was incredible, homemade pasta with sauce that tasted like sunshine and love. Despite the tension, both of them began to relax. "This is amazing," Max said, genuinely impressed. "Rosa learned from her grandmother in Sicily," Celeste explained, her anger softening. "She says food is love made visible." They ate in comfortable silence until Max spoke again. "I'm sorry. About what I said earlier. I know you're not after my money." "How?" "Because you're here, in this restaurant that probably costs less for an entire meal than I usually spend on wine. Because you work 3 jobs and still volunteer your free time. Because you challenge me instead of agreeing with everything I say." He set down his fork. "Because when you look at me, you see Max, not Maximilian Blackwood's bank account." Celeste felt her heart flutter. "You're different than I expected." "Good different or bad different?" "Dangerously different." Their eyes met across the small table, and the air between them crackled with possibility. Max found himself leaning forward, drawn by her warmth, her genuineness, her strength. "Celeste, I—" His phone buzzed insistently, then again, and again. "You should answer that," she said softly. Max glanced at the screen. Theodore, the Henderson deal. Reality came crashing back. "Mr. Blackwood," Theodore's voice was tense when Max finally answered. "Where are you?" "The Henderson board is meeting in an hour. They're ready to walk away from the deal entirely if we don't present the final terms tonight." Max looked at Celeste, who was pretending to focus on her pasta but obviously listening. "I'll be there in 30 minutes, he said. "Sir, that's not enough time to prepare." "Then we'll improvise." Max hung up, seeing disappointment flash across Celeste's face. "You have to go," she said. "Yes, but I don't want to." The simple admission made her breath catch. "This Henderson deal, it's important to you. It's worth $50 million to my company. And how many jobs will be lost?" Max hesitated. About 30% of their workforce, maybe 300 people. Celeste nodded slowly. 300 families. Celeste, it's not that simple, isn't it? She stood, pulling on her jacket. You have a choice, Max. You can choose profit or people, money or morality. The question is, who do you want to be? As she started to leave, Max caught her arm gently. Have breakfast with me tomorrow, please. Let me show you that I can be the man you deserve. For a moment she wavered. Then she nodded. Okay, but not somewhere fancy. There's a diner on 5th and Main, 7 a.m. After she left, Max sat alone in the warm restaurant, Rosa's pasta growing cold as he stared at his phone. 300 jobs. $50 million. Celeste's disappointed eyes. His phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Choose wisely, Mr. Blackwood. Some decisions can't be undone. Some hearts can't be unbroken. A friend. Max stared at the message, a chill running down his spine. Someone was watching, waiting, manipulating events from the shadows. At the same moment, across town, Celeste was climbing the stairs to her apartment when her phone rang. Celeste Romano? The voice was unfamiliar, professional. Yes? This is Marcus Webb from Webb Investigations. I've been hired to look into your background. I thought you should know. What? Who hired you? I can't say. But they're digging deep. Your mother's employment history, your father's reasons for leaving, your financial records. Be careful who you trust. The line went dead, leaving Celeste standing frozen in her hallway. Someone was investigating her, trying to destroy whatever was growing between her and Max. As both of them faced their separate demons that night, neither knew that Vivian was in her penthouse, champagne in hand, watching her carefully laid plans unfold. The game was accelerating, and the stakes had never been higher. Max hadn't slept. The Henderson board meeting had lasted until 3 a.m., ending with signatures on papers that would change hundreds of lives. As he sat in his penthouse at dawn, staring at the city waking up below, all he could think about was Celeste's question, who do you want to be? At exactly 7 a.m., he pushed through the door of Mel's Diner, a place that looked like it hadn't been updated since the 1950s. Celeste was already there, nursing a cup of coffee and looking exhausted. You look like hell, she said, as he slid into the cracked vinyl booth across from her. Thanks, you look beautiful. The compliment was automatic, sincere, and made her cheeks flush despite her obvious distress. Did you do it? She asked without preamble. The Henderson deal? Max nodded slowly. I signed the papers 3 hours ago. Celeste closed her eyes, and he saw her shoulders sag slightly. 300 families. Celeste. I know, it's business. I know you think you had no choice. She opened her eyes, and he was surprised to see understanding instead of anger. Someone called me last night. A private investigator. Someone hired him to dig into my background. Max's blood ran cold. What? He wouldn't say who, but they're looking into everything. My mother's jobs, my father, our finances. Max, I think someone is trying to destroy whatever this is between us. Before Max could respond, the diner bell jingled and Vivian walked in, impossibly elegant even at 7 a.m. in designer jeans and a cashmere sweater. She spotted them immediately and approached with a predatory smile. Well, how cozy. Vivian slid uninvited into the booth next to Max, forcing him to move closer to the wall. I was just having breakfast at the Four Seasons when I saw you through the window. I simply had to stop by. Vivian. Max's voice carried a warning. What do you want? To congratulate you on the Henderson acquisition, of course. $50 million and only 300 job cuts? Brilliant. Her eyes fixed on Celeste. Though I imagine some people might find such ruthless efficiency distasteful. Celeste stood abruptly. I should go. Oh, don't leave on my account, Vivian purred. I was just about to share some interesting information I received about you. Max felt Celeste freeze. Vivian. Enough. Did you know? Vivian continued as if he hadn't spoken. That Celeste's father didn't just abandon the family. He was arrested for embezzling money from his construction company. $40,000 that was never recovered. The color drained from Celeste's face. That's not the whole story. Isn't it? The money disappeared and so did Daddy. Like father, like daughter, I suppose. Stop. Max's voice was deadly quiet, but Vivian was on a roll. The apple doesn't fall far from the tree. I wonder what our mutual friends would think about Max dating the daughter of a thief. Celeste looked like she'd been slapped. Without a word, she grabbed her jacket and headed for the door. Celeste, wait. Max started to follow, but Vivian caught his arm. Let her go, Max. She's not worth it. Max looked down at Vivian's manicured hand on his arm, then at her smug face, and something inside him snapped. Get your hands off me, he said quietly, and stay away from her. You're making a mistake. The only mistake I made was ever trusting you. Max stood, throwing money on the table. We're done, Vivian. Whatever game you're playing, whatever you think you're accomplishing, it ends now. He caught up with Celeste half a block away, tears streaming down her face. Celeste, please. She's right, Celeste said without turning around. About my father. About me not belonging in your world. Max gently turned her to face him, not caring that they were on a busy sidewalk with people staring. Tell me what really happened. Celeste wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. My father was the site foreman on a big construction project. When the company owner couldn't make payroll, Dad took money that was supposed to go to suppliers to pay his workers instead. He couldn't stand seeing families go without food while rich owners played golf. So he stole to help people? The law didn't see it that way. Neither did my mother. She said he should have found another way, that stealing was wrong no matter the reason. Fresh tears spilled over. He left rather than face prison and destroy our reputation further. Max cupped her face gently, using his thumbs to wipe away her tears. And what do you think? I think he was a good man who made a desperate choice. I think sometimes there are no perfect answers. She looked up at him. Just like your Henderson deal. The parallel hit him like a physical blow. Celeste, the difference is, you had other options. My father didn't. She stepped back. I can't do this, Max. I can't be the reason people whisper about you, question your judgment. I don't care what people think. Yes, you do. You should. Your reputation affects thousands of employees, shareholders, business partners. I won't be responsible for damaging that. Max felt something crack inside his chest. So what, we just give up? Let Vivian and whoever else is pulling strings win? There is no we, Max. There never really was. We're from different worlds and maybe it's better if we stay in them. She started to walk away again, but Max called after her. I could have done it differently. Celeste stopped, not turning around. The Henderson deal. I could have structured it to save more jobs, taken less profit. I chose the money because that's what I've always done. But you make me want to choose differently. Now she did turn, hope and heartbreak warring in her expression. Then why didn't you? Because I was scared. Scared of changing. Scared of failing. Scared of being the man you see in me instead of the one I've always been. He took a step closer. But I'm more scared of losing you. For a moment they stood there in the middle of the sidewalk, the city flowing around them, everything hanging in the balance. It's too late, Celeste whispered. The deal is done. Those people have already lost their jobs. Then I'll find another way to help them. I'll create new positions, fund retraining programs, something. Anything. Because of me. Because of who I want to be when I'm with you. Celeste felt her resolve crumbling, but before she could respond, her phone buzzed with a text from the same unknown number. Check the morning financial news. Your prince isn't as noble as he pretends. A friend. With trembling fingers, she opened a news app. The headline made her blood run cold. Blackwood Industries accused of insider trading in Henderson acquisition. She showed Max the screen, watching his face go white. That's impossible, he breathed. I would never. Mr. Blackwood. Reporters seemed to appear from nowhere, cameras flashing, microphones thrust forward. Any comment on the SEC investigation? Did you use insider information to manipulate the Henderson stock price? Max grabbed Celeste's hand. We need to go. Now. As they ran down the street, dodging photographers and shouted questions, Celeste realized their quiet moment of decision had been stolen. Whatever choice they might have made, someone else was making it for them. Behind them, unseen in the crowd, Vivian smiled and made a phone call. Phase 2 is complete, she said quietly. He's about to lose everything. Max's penthouse had become a war zone. Lawyers filled the living room, phones rang incessantly, and Theodore paced frantically while barking orders. The SEC investigation had triggered a media frenzy that threatened to destroy everything Max had built. The stock is down 30%, Theodore announced grimly. 3 board members are calling for your resignation and our biggest clients are pulling their accounts. Max sat in his leather chair, outwardly calm but internally spiraling. All he could think about was Celeste's face when those reporters ambushed them, the way she'd looked at him with a mixture of disbelief and heartbreak. Sir? Miranda appeared at his elbow. Your mother is here. Eleanor Blackwood swept into the room like an avenging angel in Chanel, her cold eyes surveying the chaos with disgust. Everyone out, she commanded. I need to speak with my son, alone. Within minutes, the room was empty, except for mother and son. Eleanor poured herself a scotch from Max's bar and fixed him with a withering stare. Well, Maximilian, you've certainly outdone yourself this time. Mother, I didn't do anything wrong. Someone is setting me up. Of course they are. The question is who, and more importantly, why now? Eleanor sipped her drink thoughtfully. This all started when you began your little dalliance with that Romano girl. Max's jaw tightened. Celeste has nothing to do with this. Doesn't she? Convenient timing, don't you think? She appears in your life, you start making uncharacteristic emotional decisions, and suddenly your empire is under attack. You're suggesting she's behind this? I'm suggesting you've been thinking with your heart instead of your head, and in our world that's a fatal mistake. Before Max could respond, his private phone buzzed. A text from Celeste. I'm at my apartment. We need to talk. Please come alone. 20 minutes later, Max stood in the hallway of a Brooklyn apartment building that smelled of cooking spices and old paint. When Celeste opened the door, she looked exhausted, her eyes red from crying. You came, she said, stepping aside to let him enter. The apartment was tiny but warm, filled with mismatched furniture and photographs of Celeste with an older woman who had her same kind eyes. Your mother? Max asked, nodding toward a picture. Yeah, she's working a double shift tonight. Celeste wrapped her arms around herself. Max, I've been thinking about everything that's happened and If you're about to tell me this is over between us, save your breath. Max interrupted. I won't accept it. You don't understand. I got more calls today. That investigator, reporters, even someone claiming to be from the SEC asking about our relationship. She turned to face him, pain etched in her features. Someone is using me to destroy you. Then we'll figure out who and stop them. How? Your company is falling apart. Your reputation is in ruins. And it's all because of me. Max crossed the room in 2 strides, taking her hands in his. No, it's because someone is scared of what we represent. What do we represent? Change. The possibility that someone like me might choose love over profit, people over power. That terrifies certain people. Celeste looked up at him, seeing the man she'd fallen for despite every logical reason not to. I'm scared, Max. So am I. But I'm not giving up on us. Before she could respond, there was a sharp knock at the door. They froze, looking at each other with growing dread. NYPD, open up. Max's blood went cold. Don't answer it. I have to. Celeste squeezed his hands. If I don't, it'll look worse. She opened the door to find 2 detectives and a woman in a severe suit. Ms. Romano? I'm Agent Sarah Chen, SEC. We need to ask you some questions about your relationship with Maximilian Blackwood. She's not answering any questions without a lawyer, Max said, appearing behind Celeste. Agent Chen smiled coldly. Mr. Blackwood, how convenient. Actually, we have questions for you too. Specifically about information you may have shared with Ms. Romano regarding the Henderson acquisition. I never told her anything about Henderson, Max said firmly. Really? Because we have phone records showing you called her the night before Henderson's stock price mysteriously jumped 20%. Celeste looked at Max in confusion. You called me that night? Max frowned, trying to remember. Yes, but we only talked for a few minutes about dinner plans. And you're sure you didn't mention anything about Henderson? Agent Chen pressed. Positive. Agent Chen nodded to one of the detectives who produced a tablet. Then perhaps you can explain this. The screen showed a trading account in Celeste's name, with a $50,000 purchase of Henderson's stock made the day before the acquisition announcement. What? Celeste stared at the screen in shock. That's not my account. I don't have $50,000. I don't even have $5,000. According to our records, the account was opened with your social security number and a cashier's check, Agent Chen said. The profits from this trade were substantial, nearly $200,000. This is insane, Max said. Someone is framing her. Or she's framing you, Agent Chen suggested. A struggling nursing student gets involved with a billionaire, uses pillow talk to gain insider information, makes a killing on the market, then plays innocent when caught. That's not what happened, Celeste's voice cracked. Then explain the money, Ms. Romano. Explain how a woman who works 3 minimum wage jobs suddenly has enough capital to play the stock market. Celeste looked helplessly at Max, seeing doubt flicker across his features despite his efforts to hide it. In that moment, she realized how perfectly she'd been set up. Every piece of evidence pointed to her guilt. I want a lawyer, she whispered. Agent Chen nodded. Ms. Romano, you're under arrest for securities fraud and conspiracy. You have the right to remain silent. Max watched in horror as they handcuffed Celeste, his mind racing. Someone had orchestrated this perfectly. The timing, the evidence, even using his own phone call against them. Max, Celeste said as they led her toward the door. I didn't do this. Please believe me. I know, he said. But even as he spoke, he could see she didn't believe him. And why should she? In a world where money talked louder than truth, appearances were everything. As the door closed behind them, Max's phone rang. Unknown number. Enjoying the show, Mr. Blackwood? The voice was electronically disguised, but Max could hear the satisfaction in it. Who is this? Someone who warned you to be careful. You chose to ignore me, so now you'll lose everything. Your company, your reputation, and the woman you love. She'll spend the next 5 to 10 years in federal prison, convinced you betrayed her. What do you want? Justice. You've built your empire on the backs of working people, stepping on anyone who got in your way. Now you know what it feels like to be crushed. If I did something to you, take it up with me. Leave Celeste out of this. Too late for that. But don't worry. You'll be joining her soon enough. The SEC has more evidence coming. Evidence that will prove you were the mastermind all along. The line went dead, leaving Max alone in Celeste's tiny apartment, surrounded by the pieces of both their shattered lives. Outside, Vivienne sat in her luxury car, watching police cars pull away. Phase 3 was complete. Soon, both Max and that little nobody would be out of the picture permanently. But what Vivienne didn't know was that someone else had been watching too. Someone who had their own reasons for wanting the truth to come out, and their own plan for making sure justice was served. The game was far from over. Max hadn't left his office in 48 hours. Empty coffee cups littered his desk and stubble shadowed his usually perfect jawline. He'd hired the best criminal defense attorney in the city for Celeste, but she'd refused to see him. The message from her lawyer was clear. She wanted nothing to do with him. Sir? Miranda peered through the doorway cautiously. There's someone here to see you. Says it's about Ms. Romano. Max looked up with bloodshot eyes. Send them in. A small, elderly man in a worn suit entered, clutching a manila folder. Max recognized him immediately. James Henderson, the former owner of Henderson Corp. Mr. Blackwood, I apologize for the intrusion. Mr. Henderson. Max stood, confused. What can I do for you? It's what I can do for you. James set the folder on Max's desk. I know you didn't commit insider trading, and I know who did. Max felt his heart skip. What? The day before our acquisition announcement, someone approached my nephew Robert. He was our CFO. They offered him $2 million for advance notice of our decision. James opened the folder, revealing photographs and documents. Robert was struggling with gambling debts. He took the money. Who approached him? James pulled out a photograph, grainy surveillance footage from a parking garage. The figure was partially obscured, but the expensive car and blonde hair were unmistakable. Vivian Ashford. Max stared at the photo, pieces clicking into place. She used the information to set up Celeste. That's what I believe, but there's more. James handed him another document. The trading account in Ms. Romano's name? The money came from a shell company owned by Ashford Industries. Why are you telling me this? James's weathered face hardened. Because I've spent 40 years building Henderson Corp., and I won't see innocent people destroyed over it. That girl is sitting in jail for something Vivian Ashford orchestrated. Max was already reaching for his phone. We need to get this to the SEC immediately. I already have. Agent Chen is reviewing the evidence as we speak. James stood to leave. Mr. Blackwood, for what it's worth, I think you made the right choice with the acquisition. Sometimes there are no perfect solutions, only the least harmful ones. After James left, Max called Theodore and his legal team. Within an hour, his office was buzzing with activity as they prepared to present the new evidence. But Max's mind was elsewhere. On Celeste, alone in a jail cell, believing he'd betrayed her. Sir? Miranda appeared again. Agent Chen is on line 1. She wants to speak with you. Max grabbed the phone. Agent Chen. Mr. Blackwood, we've reviewed Mr. Henderson's evidence. It's compelling, but we need more to make charges stick against Ms. Ashford. Her voice was professional but warmer than before. We're releasing Ms. Romano on her own recognizance while we investigate further. When? She should be processed out within the hour. Max was already grabbing his jacket. Thank you. He made it to the courthouse in record time, pacing the lobby until Celeste emerged from an elevator, looking fragile and lost in yesterday's clothes. When she saw him, her expression hardened. What are you doing here? Waiting for you. Max approached slowly as if she might bolt. Celeste, I have proof. Vivian set you up. She paid Henderson's CFO for insider information and used it to create that trading account in your name. Celeste stared at him, processing. Vivian did this? James Henderson came forward with evidence. The SEC is building a case against her now. For a moment, hope flickered in her eyes. Then it died. It doesn't matter. What do you mean it doesn't matter? The damage is done, Max. My name is all over the news. Every time someone Googles me, they'll see securities fraud and conspiracy. What nursing school will hire me? What hospital will trust me? Her voice broke. Vivian got what she wanted. She destroyed me. Max felt something crack inside his chest. Then we'll fight back. We'll clear your name completely. And then what? We go back to pretending we belong in the same world? Celeste shook her head. I spent 2 days in jail, Max. You know what I realized? This is what happens when people like me get involved with people like you. We get crushed. That's not true, isn't it? Your mother was right. I'm a liability to you, to your company, to everything you've worked for. She started walking toward the exit. Go back to your penthouse, Max. Marry Vivian or someone like her. Build your empire. Be happy. Max caught up with her on the courthouse steps. I can't be happy without you. The raw honesty in his voice made her stop. For a moment they stood there as people flowed around them, the city continuing its relentless pace while their world stood still. You don't understand, Celeste whispered. In that cell, I had time to think. About my father. About the choices that led him to steal that money. He thought he was doing the right thing, helping people who needed it. But in the end, it destroyed our family anyway. This is different. Is it? We're from different worlds, Max. What we had was beautiful, but it was never going to last. Maybe it's better this way. A clean break before we hurt each other more. Before Max could respond, a voice called out behind them. How touching. They turned to see Vivian approaching, flanked by 2 bodyguards and her lawyer. Even facing potential criminal charges, she looked immaculate in her designer suit and perfect makeup. Vivian. Max's voice was deadly quiet. I know what you did. Do you? Can you prove it? She smiled coldly. James Henderson is a bitter old man whose company I saved from bankruptcy. His nephew is a gambling addict with credibility issues. The SEC will never make charges stick. You're wrong. Am I? Even if they do, I have the best lawyers money can buy. I'll get a slap on the wrist while your little girlfriend's reputation remains in tatters. Vivian's eyes glittered with malice. Face it, Max. I won. Why? Celeste stepped forward, her fear replaced by anger. What did I ever do to you? You made him weak. Vivian spat. For 2 years, I've been positioning myself to be the next Mrs. Blackwood. Then you appeared, some nobody waitress, and suddenly he's having a conscience crisis, making emotional decisions that threaten everything he's built. So you decided to destroy her? Max's hands clenched into fists. I decided to remove an obstacle. Nothing personal. Vivian turned to leave, then paused. Oh, and Max? The board voted this morning. You're out, effective immediately. Max felt the ground shift beneath him. What? The insider trading scandal, the negative publicity, the poor judgment in your personal life, it all adds up. The board lost confidence. Vivian's smile was triumphant. Don't worry. I'm sure they'll find you a nice consulting position somewhere. Maybe you and your girlfriend can start a little charity together. As Vivian walked away, Max stood frozen, watching 20 years of work evaporate. He'd lost his company, his reputation, everything that had defined him. But when he looked at Celeste, standing there with tears streaming down her face, not for herself but for him, he realized something that stopped him cold. He didn't care. For the first time in his adult life, losing everything felt like gaining something infinitely more precious. Celeste, he said quietly, I need to tell you something. But when he turned, she was gone, disappeared into the crowd, leaving him alone on the courthouse steps with nothing but the truth he'd finally discovered. Some things mattered more than money. Some people were worth losing everything for. Now he just had to prove it to her. 3 months later, the community center in Brooklyn buzzed with morning activity as Celeste checked medication schedules for elderly patients. The charges against her had been dropped when Vivian was arrested, but the media attention had made returning to her old life impossible. This volunteer clinic had become her refuge. Celeste, there's someone here to see you, called Dr. Martinez. She looked up from her charts, expecting another reporter or lawyer. Instead, she found herself face to face with Eleanor Blackwood, impeccably dressed even in this humble setting. Mrs. Blackwood, Celeste's voice was carefully neutral. What are you doing here? I came to apologize. Eleanor's admission was so unexpected that Celeste almost dropped her clipboard. And to ask for your help. My help? Eleanor glanced around the crowded clinic, taking in the peeling paint and outdated equipment. My son has lost everything. His company, his fortune, his reputation. Do you know what he's been doing with his time? Celeste hadn't spoken to Max since the courthouse. I don't know. He liquidated his remaining assets and created a foundation to help the Henderson employees who lost their jobs. He's been working 18-hour days, living in a studio apartment, dedicating every penny and every minute to helping people he doesn't even know. Eleanor's voice softened. People like you taught him to care about. Celeste felt her heart clench. Why are you telling me this? Because he's miserable, and because I finally understand what you mean to him. Eleanor stepped closer. I spent my whole life believing that money and status were what mattered. But watching my son choose love over everything else, it's shown me how wrong I was. Before Celeste could respond, commotion erupted outside. Through the windows, she could see news vans arriving, reporters setting up cameras. "What's happening?" Dr. Martinez asked, joining them. Eleanor smiled. "I believe my son is about to make a fool of himself. Publicly." Outside, Max stepped out of a taxi, wearing jeans and a simple sweater instead of his usual designer suits. He looked tired but determined as he faced the growing crowd of media. "Ladies and gentlemen," he called out, his voice carrying over the street noise, "I have a statement to make." Celeste watched through the window, her heart pounding. 3 months ago, I was the CEO of a billion-dollar company. I lived in a penthouse, drove expensive cars, and believed that success was measured by profit margins. Max's eyes found the clinic window, though Celeste knew he couldn't see her through the crowd. "I was wrong about everything." A reporter shouted a question, but Max held up his hand. "I'm here today because I met someone who showed me what real wealth looks like. Her name is Celeste Romano, and she's inside this clinic right now volunteering her time to help people who can't afford health care. She works multiple jobs to put herself through nursing school. She takes care of her mother, and she has more integrity in her little finger than I had in my entire body." Celeste gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. "I fell in love with her," Max continued, his voice growing stronger. "And because of that love, I learned that some things are worth more than money, that helping people matters more than helping yourself, that being right matters more than being rich." "Mr. Blackwood," a reporter called out, "are you saying you gave up your fortune for a woman?" Max smiled, the first genuine smile Celeste had seen from him since this all began. "No. I'm saying I found something more valuable than any fortune. I found someone who makes me want to be the man she already sees in me, someone worth becoming my best self for." He pulled something from his pocket, a small velvet box that made Celeste's breath catch. "Celeste Romano, I know you're watching. I know you think we're from different worlds, that we can't make this work. But I've learned something these past 3 months. We don't come from different worlds. We come from the same one. The world where love matters more than money, where kindness matters more than status, where being together matters more than being comfortable apart." The crowd had grown silent. Even the reporters caught up in the drama unfolding. "I can't offer you a penthouse anymore, or fancy dinners, or expensive jewelry. I can offer you my heart, my dedication to the work you taught me to value, and a lifetime of loving you more than anything else in this world." Max dropped to one knee right there on the sidewalk, opening the box to reveal a simple solitaire diamond. "Will you marry me, Celeste? Will you let me spend the rest of my life proving that you were right about everything that matters?" Inside the clinic, Celeste was crying openly, her hand pressed against the glass. Every person in the waiting room was watching the scene outside, many of them crying too. "Well?" Eleanor asked softly. "What are you waiting for?" Celeste looked at Max's mother, this woman who had once been her enemy, and saw only understanding and acceptance in her eyes. "Go," Dr. Martinez urged. "Go get your man." Celeste pushed through the crowd, reporters parting to let her pass. When Max saw her, he stood slowly, hope and fear warring in his expression. "You gave up everything," she whispered, just loud enough for him to hear. "I gave up nothing. I found everything." He stepped closer, close enough that she could see the love shining in his eyes. "I love you, Celeste. Not despite our differences, but because of how you've changed me, because of who we are together. The board, your company, can go to hell." Max cupped her face gently. "I'd rather build something new with you than maintain something hollow without you. We can start a foundation together, help people who need it. We can make a difference." Celeste looked into his eyes and saw the truth. This wasn't the arrogant billionaire she'd met at the gala. This was the man she'd seen glimpses of, the one who'd defended her, who'd danced with her, who'd made her believe in fairy tales. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes. Yes, I'll marry you. Yes to the foundation. Yes to making a difference. Yes to loving you for the rest of my life." The crowd erupted in cheers as Max slipped the ring onto her finger and kissed her with everything he had. In that moment, surrounded by reporters and strangers standing outside a community clinic in Brooklyn, Celeste felt like the richest woman in the world. When they finally broke apart, Max rested his forehead against hers. "I love you, Celeste Romano. You saved me." "No," she smiled, tears of joy streaming down her face. "We saved each other." From the clinic window, Eleanor Blackwood watched her son kiss his future wife and realized that sometimes the best investments had nothing to do with money. And somewhere across town, Vivian Ashford watched the news from her jail cell, finally understanding that she hadn't just lost the game. She'd never understood what the prize really was. Love. The one thing money couldn't buy, and the only thing that truly mattered. The end. 6 months later, Max and Celeste were married in Mama Rosa's restaurant, surrounded by friends, family, and all the patients from the community clinic. The Romano Blackwood Foundation had helped place every Henderson Corp employee in new jobs, and Celeste had graduated nursing school with highest honors. They lived in a modest apartment in Brooklyn and were ridiculously happy. And if you asked either of them, they'd tell you that sometimes the best mistakes are the ones that lead you exactly where you belong.